Hello everyone, my name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another comic book review. Now, I'm sure that those of you who are a part of the Marvel fan community like I am are aware of the backlash and hate that She-Hulk has been getting, where people are calling it one of two things. Either it's the worst thing in Phase 4, which I can personally agree with at the moment, or it's the worst thing that Marvel has ever put out, specifically in terms of shows, but let's be honest, I'm sure they mean in general. And, I respect their opinion. Opinions are to be respected, like I said in my She Hulk review. But to those people, I do have to ask, did y'all forget that Inhumans exists? Because this sucks. Like, man, I was hoping that people would be, that, like, I would be disagreeing with people here, but nah, this is trash. I mean, I wouldn't say it's terrible by any means, but it's pretty bad. It's not good. So why is it that I say that this is not good? Well, let's get over the one good thing first. There are a couple of characters here that I do like. Just two. And neither of them are technically main characters. One of them kind of is, but one of them isn't. Starting with the technically main character, I do find myself being pretty attached to Lockjaw. He is essentially a giant inhuman puppy, and something about that, even though I'm more of a cat person than a dog person, something about that is just very endearing to me. He has some very sweet moments with the members of the Inhuman royal family. And the other character that I really like is Mortis. That him being one of the mercenaries that Maximus sends after the Inhuman royal family. He just has this fun, sarcastic personality to him, and it makes he makes every scene that he's in better up until he dies, which, man, of all the mercenaries you had to kill off, you had to kill him. So yeah, there are some characters here that I do like, a couple, but those are the only ones I can really say I have any affinity for, and when those are the only likable characters in your show, that is not a good sign. So we got the good parts out of the way. So I'm sure some of you are asking, why does it suck? Well, let's start off with the fact that, this is a Marvel project, you expect some action, and I'm sure that if the movie happened, the Inhumans movie that was planned originally in Captain Marvel spot, that, actually no, it was Ant-Man the Wasp spot, that, maybe we would have gotten some action, but here, two of our Inhuman royal family members are technically handicapped, with Medusa having a shaved head and Karnak being mentally, while suffering a head trauma. And then you have Black Bolt, who can barely even use his power. So that's pretty much left with Crystal, who doesn't fight, or at least barely fights, and Gorgon, who admittedly does have some decent action scenes, but since he's the only one who gets them, it generally just makes the show very unengaging and slow to watch. And along with that, Maximus doesn't really pose that big of a threat. Like, yeah, he staged a coup and took over Adelan, but nothing about him really says that this guy needs to be stopped until the last couple of episodes. And even then, that's just a simple solution. So really, there's no urgency to the whole thing until the last episode, and that's not a good sign. Along with that, a lot of the characters just feel very bland. It's like each of them has like a personality trait, and that's it. And I don't think I could even tell you what that personality trait was for any of them. And none of them really go on a journey either. Whatever journey they go on is very rushed, and because of that, none of the tender moments in the show, none of the moments that are supposed to be heartwarming, feel earned. The only one that feels kind of earned is the one between Crystal and Dave before, you know, the Inhumans return back to Adelan, and even that doesn't feel earned because of the next part. Now, the show's obviously not looking so good so far. It's like got two likable characters at most, some decent action scenes with one character. Other than that, there's not a lot of action or urgency, and characters are very bland. But then there's the acting. Oh, good God, the acting. Okay, I think I'm overselling how bad it is, but it's not good at all. most of the performances are pretty wooden, and most of the ones that aren't are generally okay. There are actually a decent one here and there. Gorgon's probably one of the only ones that gets a decent performance. Maybe Karnak, but Medusa and Crystal are very wooden in their acting. And then there's Black Bolt. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to bring up the argument, wait, but he can't talk. He has the supersonic voice thing. True. I'm sorry if you heard noise there. I accidentally hit my mic. And it's like, yeah, that's true. He doesn't speak. But that's not an excuse for him to at least not give us some decent face acting. Like, if you can't speak to emote, use your damn face. And he doesn't. He has the same monotone, serious expression on his face the entire show. Maybe it turns sad in a few moments, but for the most part, it's the same face. Like this face that he's making on the poster, this right here, this is pretty close to the only face that he makes during the entire runtime of the show. Like, say whatever the hell you want about the project I'm about to bring up. Why is it that Black Bolt shows more emotion in his 2 minutes of screen time in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness than he does in the entirety of this show? Like in that in that movie, he showed some actually pretty decent emotions, even though more of his face was covered. All you could really go off of was his mouth and maybe his eyes, but really it was just his mouth. Like for example, he showed sadness and remorse when having to relive the memory of having to execute Strange Supremes. I'm sorry, Supreme Strange. Strange Supreme is what if. He showed cockiness and arrogance when getting ready to, you know, act on Reed's threat if Wanda didn't back down. And then Wanda shields his mouth shut, he actually starts to panic and he shows genuine fear. His last moment alive is him screaming because he's like, "Holy shit, my mouth is stuck. What do I do?" So Black Bolt Anson Mount is capable of showing genuine emotion as Black Bolt. I mean, I guess we didn't know it back then, but now that Multiverse of Madness is a thing and he was in that, he doesn't really have much of an excuse anymore. And honestly, I have to wonder if maybe this was something on the executives' half because I'm sure that all of these actors are really good in their own rights. But this show isn't really a good example of that. And this show in general isn't really a good example of anything in Marvel projects. It doesn't have great action, it doesn't have good characters, it doesn't have good acting. It's just not good all across the board. I wouldn't call it terrible, but it is still pretty bad. And while I was generous with She-Hulk and gave that a 1.5, I unfortunately can't extend the same generosity to Inhumans. This is just a flat 1 in general. Like, there's some entertainment value to be had, but not nearly enough to keep my attention the whole time. In general, it's just boring, it's generic, there's not a lot going for it. And the little bit of enjoyment I got out of it was born from 2 characters and maybe some action from another character. I'd say give it a watch if you want to see what it's really like, maybe form your own opinion, but otherwise, there's so much better to watch in the MCU than this. So, anyways, guys, if you hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all the generic stuff. And until next time, I'll see you all in the next review. Take care. Godspeed.